Here.
Dr. Haas? Here. Mr. Wells?
Here.
Mr. Van Schack?
Here.
Mr. Maskell?
Mrs. Maskell.
I'm sorry. There you go. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And can we all stand for a moment of silence for Sal Verastro, a retired science teacher that passed. Thank you. So the first thing that we'll do this evening is swear in our new board members. The newest board member is Mr. Timothy Wells. You'll raise your hand and read this.
I, Timothy Wells, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of school board member according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
I, Susan Gage, solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of school board district member according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. And Mrs. Behringer, you're up next. Raise your right hand. There you go.
I, Krista Behringer, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of school board member according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. And now we will proceed to nominating the president for the board for the year 2021 and the vice president for the board for the year of 2021. Any nominations?
I nominate Bob Thoman for president.
Are there any other nominations? Can I have a motion to close the nominations?
Motion to close.
And second?
Second.
Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Tillman.
Thanks, I think.
And now we'll have nominations for the vice president.
I nominate James Mooney.
Are there any other nominations for vice president? Then can I have a motion to close the nominations for vice president?
So move.
Second? Second, Mrs. Gage, thank you very much. And congratulations, Mr. Mooney.
Thank you.
And now I'll turn the meeting over to the president, Mr. Tillman.
You have to swear us in first.
Sure.
Sure.
I'm paying attention to that. Just, I can't find your president one. School board president.
That would become Susan Gage. I, Robert Tillman, solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of school board president according to the best of my ability.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations.
Same deal.
I, James Mooney, do solemnly swear that I support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York. And I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of School Board Vice President according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now I will turn the meeting over to the president of the board, Mr. Tillman.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Francello. I'll entertain a motion to approve item C1 in its entirety.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Gage. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. By Mr. Van Schack. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item D, I'll entertain a motion for, we have to give you the oath of office for the district clerk. You have that sheet, Ms. Francello?
Yes, I do.
You got it. Raise your right hand.
I, Sharon Francello, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of School Board Clerk according to the best of my abilities. Whatever they may be.
All right. So I will entertain a motion for item E in its entirety.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. McClary. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mooney. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I will entertain a motion for item F in its entirety. Moved by Mrs. Gage. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mooney. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I will entertain a motion for item G, adjournment of the organizational meeting, which will automatically bring us into the regular meeting. Moved by Mr. Mooney. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McClary. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now on to the regular meeting. I'll entertain a motion for item 1, 2, and 3, and 4, approval of the previous minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Gage. Is there a second?
There's only 3, correct?
Is that you, Ms. Barringer, is a second? Okay, Ms. Barringer seconds. Any discussion? Item 4 is on the second page. Any discussion? None being heard?
Excuse me. You said 1,
2, 3, and 4.
approval of minutes. 14. Okay.
Okay. Any discussion? None being heard. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Presentations and honorings, we don't have anything. It's blank here. Communications to the board, technology plan.
Darlene's going to present the technology plan to the board.
Okay, Dr. Westinghouse, you're on.
Isn't it Beach? Sorry.
Can we just, wait a minute. I do the same thing.
Does she know she's muted, Dan?
I'm not muted anymore. I'm
Okay.
waiting for Sherry.
Yeah.
Should I not wait?
No, you can go ahead. There was a page missing out of one of the agendas, so just feel free to start.
Okay, so we, as a committee, updated the technology plan for 2 years. And we looked at everything that we had put as our goals, and we took out everything that we already did and added new goals. We also took the ISTE standards, which is the International Society of Technology and Education standards that we have in there. And we updated them because they have new standards out and they're phenomenal. Like, I'm just going to read you a few. I'm not going to read the whole standard, but empowered learner, digital citizen, knowledge constructor, innovative designer, computational thinker. So those are our goals, you know, to really go into the 21st century with stuff like that. And then we also added all the part 121 2D information. We put in a graphic for that and the NIST framework. So it's pretty much up to date. And that's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Public recognition. Mr. Erceg, do we have any questions from the public?
There are no items in the email.
Okay, and the public can't chime in virtually, correct?
No, there was no.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Mr. Reinhardt.
Yes, quickly, two things before we get to the capital project. First of all, I want to thank the board and the community and the entire staff of Saugerties for the graduation. I think it was really amazing. It was a great night. The community was involved. It was a lot of work by Tom and the high school staff and the community, because everybody. It was just a great evening. So I really want to publicly thank everybody for us getting through that. It was wonderful. Is that me?
No.
Okay. Secondly, I know a lot of parents are concerned. We did receive the guidance documents yesterday. We have been working on this. We started our first reopening task force meeting back in April. So now we're going to take the work that we've done, align that with we got from the state yesterday. And as you saw going through it, you know, there's a lot of requirements, there's a lot of mandates, and there's a lot of guidance. One of the ones that kind of hit upon us a lot last night when we were looking at it is they're really recommending a phasing in of whatever we choose to do or what we need to do for in-person. And they want to focus on early grades, students with disabilities, E&L, and then looking at our students that are struggling for those interactions and those engagements. So looking at all those pieces, that's kind of where we're going. Our plan is due the 31st. Once that plan is done, it will also be on the website, and we'll continue having our reopening task force meetings. But as we get information, I will continually get everything on the website for any parents or community members who want to know what we're doing going into the fall. But I just want to kind of touch base on that before we got into the capital project. Okay. With that, Mike, Lima.
Well, hello everyone. How are you? We have the Garrett doing there you go, screen sharing. Excuse me. I'm on with Garrett from Tetra Tech, and what we have here is just to update of where we are with the capital improvement project and getting us to. There you go. Wait for Garrett. You're tweaking with it, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Go ahead, Mike. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just getting us set up here.
No, that's fine. So I was find a little time for you. So we continue to work behind the scenes. Garrett is going to run through the updates of where we are in the spreadsheet that's been worked on and developed that we're going to build the scope off of and the budgets. So we've been doing the scope development by walking the buildings, identifying the things, listing them on the long range and short range plan, going through the district team leaders and listening by priorities 1, 2, and 3, and building in all sorts of factors of if we build things in priority 1 or priority 3, the difference of timeframes, what's the cost impact and where is it relative to the needs of the district? If you want to go on to the next slide, Garrett.
Okay.
So I started to touch base on those things. Again, it's just continuing to develop the scope and the budget that goes with us to get us to a timeline of here in the fall, presenting it to the board for review and approval to begin the process of a public vote here in December. Next slide, please. And again, we always thought it was be good to really identify the goals of the project and in the best interest of the district and really trying to keep things fiscally responsible, addressing all the needs and today and in the future for the students and the community. Next slide. Okay, and Garrett, should I pass it off to you here because we're going to get into your presentation.
I'll be glad to pick it up here. That's a good point, Mike. So this is the same budget summary that we saw at the last board meeting and the committee meeting last week as well. $22 million being the total referendum that would be a no tax increase project at the district level. So what I'd like to go to next is, this is the screenshot, a little snapshot of the scope development spreadsheet that Mike referenced. And this is going to be a very important tool for us moving forward. So I'd like to just take a couple minutes and kind of go through how this works. The way I'd like to do that, though, is to jump actually into the spreadsheet. So let me just make sure, can everybody see the spreadsheet now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm not going to go in a whole lot of detail, but this is a fairly complex Excel spreadsheet document. My cursor's at the bottom here, and there are various tabs. We're on right now the high school tab. There's a tab for each school. So here's Cahill at the bottom. We could switch to that. I come back to the high school. All the other schools are off to the right. Each school is comprised of a series of rows, each row being a scope item. The important thing to point out is that the spreadsheet allows for assigning a priority to each of the scope items. And so, for instance, this line right here, line 13, that I've shaded a little bit just to identify for tonight's purposes, is currently identified as a priority 1 item. So that's reconstruct exterior stucco EFIS, exterior insulation and finish system, on the outside of the high school. This is in conjunction with number 15 below, which is replace windows that are deteriorated. So these are both priority 1s. What's going to happen is that Mike and his team are working to develop budgets for each of these scope items. So right now we don't have any budgets in the scoping document, but I'm just going to put, for example purposes, a number in here. I'll just put 200,000. We know this is going to be a significantly more expensive item than that, but just so we can show you a little bit of how this spreadsheet works. So you'll see that because it's a priority 1, when I put it into this budget column, it automatically shows up in this column here, which is the sum of the priority 1 items. We're carrying an escalation in this spreadsheet right now of 10%. I'll adjust it to 12 so it matches the front page summary that we went through. So what we're saying is that a budget item in today's dollars will cost more when we get to construction, and so the scoping document will allow for that. If we decided together that this item was not a priority 1, but let's say it needed to move to priority 2 for some reason, it's very simple to change it in the priority column to a 2. The budget stays the same, but it moves over to this priority 2 column with a little different escalation factor because it would be farther out. And so this is how the spreadsheet works. We also have the ability to track capital outlay items. So the Riccardi doors show up in the spreadsheet now as a K, and that budget will show up here in this column on that tab. Work that would be either done by the district or will be done by the district, so we're identifying some things that Randy and his team would take on. We can put a D in this column, and that puts it over here. So that way it's very easy to keep track of work that the district's undertaking as well. And the last thing I'll note about the spreadsheet is I'm going to move over to the summary tab, and you'll see that it's listing each of the schools here. It will total up all the subtotal of the raw construction dollars for whatever priority it is, and then we'll come up to summaries of project amounts down here at the bottom. So let me just go back to this. I'm going to make the stucco system a priority 1. I'll go back to the summary sheet. Sorry for bouncing back and forth here, but you'll see this is the value of that work from the individual schools list. It shows up here as a priority 1, and it starts to build towards a referendum amount. Jim has done a nice job of keeping track of what the target referendum amount is, and so there'll be a variance here. And so as the priority 1 items start to stack up and tally up, we'll see how much room we have left to be able to either add more if we're under the referendum amount, or remove various scope items if we're over. So that's a sort of a quick snapshot of the spreadsheet. Are there any questions about that before I move back to the rest of the presentation? Okay, great. So let me go back to the spreadsheet here. Okay, so we saw the slide last time. This is an overview of all the tasks that are going on at this point. As Mike said, we're embarking on project planning and definition right here, and we'll do that over the course of the next, really the next couple months. So this is the same schedule that we showed you last time, and the important dates that I'd like to highlight here, unless people have other questions, are we're targeting a December 7th vote, and in order to meet the timeline for voting a project for pre-referendum, the board would need to take action, meaning finalize the scope of the project in October, on October 13th is your regularly scheduled board meeting that month. So we're targeting that for final scope development. So we have a couple months here to get budgeting in, to finalize priorities, to review it with the committee and the board, and then we're off.
You may have a problem getting the machines from the county. You might have to push that.
Is there a question about the schedule? Oh, it's a comment about the voting machines.
Garrett, this is just Paul. I just have a quick question about, where we're going to be at in the December referendum if we're not going to be able to get people in there to physically vote. Kirk, what do you think is going to happen there?
Well, I know that they had the primary vote in June was held at Morse. So I'm hoping that same guidance will go through. Mr. Van Schack, does that make sense?
Yes, that's good.
But,
thanks.
Sherry and I will do some research on that this week about what the projections are for us to have a capital project vote in December 7th. And I'll report back to the board.
And you had a concern, Ms. Francella, about obtaining the voting machines necessary for the election also?
Yeah, there's usually at least 4-week turnover from the elections. We have to find out what the turnover is from the elections.
Yeah, both very good points, actually. For the first one, for whether to vote in person or how that works, I would recommend also contacting your bond counsel. I'm sure that they're considering that carefully. And then the voting machine question, if it's going to need voting machines, then obviously we're going to need to coordinate that, because you're right, they do sequester those machines related to other votes.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll look into both those. Okay, other questions? Okay, then, just moving on.
Sorry, Garrett, can I, sorry.
Of course.
In going back to your timetable, between now and our next meeting in August, what you're indicating here is that we would have to have the established project estimates, that we would have confirmation of our district needs, and that we'll be ready to finalize pretty much by next month. And
Yep, so we understand that it's going to be a challenge to finalize everything by August. We have till October to do that ultimately. So the next board meeting we're anticipating will be a review of what we recommend for scope. There'll be an opportunity to adjust things and then actually finalize the scope and budget in September is what we're calling for here.
okay.
Other questions? Don't want to rush. Okay, we can come back to this if there are other questions as we move forward. So this is just a graphical version of the timeline. As Mike and I were talking about before the meeting, we're feeling like we're in good shape here. We're on target for an October proposition resolution, and we're really moving forward. The one thing that I would point out is that the green line down at the bottom is communication strategy and project interpretation. And so we want to build in, especially starting sort of the September timeframe, some opportunities to get this in front of the public, and that may require some creative thinking considering the coronavirus. We are going to be meeting with the BOCES PR person to get their input and get them involved in the communication strategy for the project. So the BOCES person is tentatively scheduled for next week.
Can I jump in here again? Sorry.
Of course, yeah.
Kind of, when we've been talking about the capital plan, I know as a board, we've continually talked about this need to bring this back out to the community and do a lot of community work. And again, I guess I'm just kind of really concerned about the timeline, the way we're pushing this in, and in that I do not think that our interpretation of community outreach was a flyer, documentation on our Facebook page, information on the website. I felt like we were trying to say we needed to have a lot of meetings out in the public, that we were going to have community outreach, that there was going to be a lot of interactive activity, not just one meeting where we're going to have people come that might be interested, but that people were going to be going to events and talking about our capital plan. And what I'm looking at here, I mean, we've got, by the time we finalize it in October, and then we're pushing to have a vote in December, it's going to be a huge push and a huge lift to get that kind of community stakeholder involvement than I think what we were talking about in the past. That's just my personal opinion. I just feel like we're really pushing a capital plan onto our public when we were really talking about having them be a part of our capital plan development, is my personal.
Yeah. What others think about that? I think it's a really good point of conversation.
I'd have to agree. This is Jim. We did talk about it, and then everything kind of happened with the pandemic, which kind of didn't allow for this to happen. I'm just concerned. One, I mean, obviously we do need the public behind this and we need the public input. But I'm also looking at the material cost of putting it off. I had to buy 2 boards yesterday that normally would have cost me like $5 or $6, and it was $13, $14. Everything is kind of doubled in price. My concern is we need the public, and we need their input and we want their input because we represent them, does that mean we forego the capital project? You know, and I think it would be foolish to do so. Again, it's my opinion. I think we have momentum. I wish more people would attend the meetings. They are open. Maybe we can do a better job of letting the public know when we're having the meetings.
Right. I think we should also take a look at the scope of the work too, and take a look at what on this go around to see what has to be done to these schools in order to have a safe working environment that these kids can come back into. And then the really, high flyer items and wish lists that we'd like to have, we have to look at that maybe the next project. But, there's stuff in these schools that have to be fixed.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I Jim, just in terms of your comment, I support you 100%. I do not think we need to postpone this at all. But I just really want to emphasize that one of the dialogues that we had when we were selecting the entity to help us move this forward was, and I think one of the things that really sold me was that community outreach, and that we were going to have people going out into our community and they were going to present it into the community. And so I guess that's what I'm looking for now, is part of that timeline to hear, by the way, we're already scheduled on so-and-so agenda for October or November, and we're already planning to be here, that the community outreach is because now is July. And if we wait until October to start talking community outreach, we're going to be like behind the game. So I just feel like we should be talking now about where are you going in October and November? Where are we going to be presenting this? How strong is our community outreach now for them? That's just my opinion.
Krista, can I chime in, Krista?
Go ahead, Kirk.
We're meeting with, just so you know, myself and representatives from the capital project are meeting with with BOCES that last week in July. And part of that meeting is me going back out with my meet and greets like I was doing in the fall and the spring, and to get that calendar back up there again. So as soon as things lift, I will then be out with Tetra Tech and BBL presenting our information, presenting our boards, presenting what we're doing. So that's the reason why we're meeting with our BOCES PR person the last week in July. So that as soon as the fall starts, I'm already out there on the agenda of the Chamber of Commerce and all the other groups that I met with when I first got hired and as we started through the fall.
Can I just say something quick? I agree with everything that everybody's saying. I think that we had plans on rolling this out in a different way, obviously, because no one was anticipating that, the world was going to shut down. That being said, I really want to make sure that we're cognizant all the time of the fact that we have to let people know that if we roll this out at this monetary level, their taxes are not going to go up, because the local share is dropping off because of the debt service. And then we're doing this capital project now strategically so that first of all, we really need it. But second of all, we're doing it so that we're trying to time it in such a way that the local share doesn't drop off, it stays even, and people's taxes don't go up. So we need to be very mindful, and we need to let people know that we're being mindful of the fact that we're trying to roll this project out and not have it have an impact on their taxes.
I think also as a point of order, the board hasn't approved anything to roll out yet. So right now, there's not a lot of publicity. I mean, we can certainly publicize the meetings to discuss what's happening and get public input, but the board can't push anything out because the board hasn't approved anything. So just to be cognizant of that.
No, but we can talk about the fact that we're rolling out a capital project. I mean, we don't need to necessarily say, this it's set in stone, because it's not, and it hasn't been voted on. But, it's not going to become a surprise to people. Some people that we've been talking about this for months now. So, there's that as well. So just getting the word out there and starting to talk about it isn't it's not going to hurt us anything. It's going to help us. If
No,
anything.
I agree, Elena. I just think that, it would be great to give the public a number, of what it's actually going to cost when we get to that point. So we have something concrete that they can, so again, right now it's in development. So there's a certain amount of vagueness that's built into it that it would be good to clear that up.
Yeah, and I'll add a little bit to that too, that I think come August, once BBL has got pricing together and we've got a rough scope for what's in the project, I think that'll be helpful to give people a good sense of what's the general gist of the project. So that would be a really good time to start making the push to get additional input and eyes on it from the community. Okay, I'll move on. We come back to anything that people want to. So this is the overall project schedule. The important thing to note is that we're anticipating construction starting in the spring and summer of 2022. The SED review times are much shorter at this point, and so that could allow for an earlier construction start, but it's anybody's guess what SED is going to look like when we are submitting in the beginning of 2021. So would rather be showing a schedule like this, which is a conservative, achievable schedule. If we can accelerate that, obviously we're going to work towards doing that. So next step, budgeting with BBL, final prioritization, that'll be over the course of the next couple months. That'll finalize the scope development for October anticipated board resolution. That's the presentation that I have for you folks tonight. Are there any questions? Stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other again here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, let me just get this unshared. Okay. Great.
So like Gary was saying, over the next few weeks while we button up and again, meeting with the BOCES group will help us start planning for all the public sessions, and we're excited about that. I think it is very important. I've always found that not only as a taxpayer in my district, knowing what's coming up, being out there with the messages is really important. Not a lot of people go to a board meeting or other events, but coffee shop talks, those kind of things are I think are really successful. I enjoy it as a taxpayer in my area.
All right, then we will move into board member remarks, item F. Any board member wishing to speak? I see Ms. Barringer's hand up.
Hello. So I forwarded to all the fellow board members the letter from Ulster BOCES that was sent out to all parents of BOCES about their plans for reopening, and that was just an FYI to know what they're preparing to do. And then also, in regards to what we've discussed earlier, I wanted to do a huge thank you to all of the staff and everybody who's been doing this huge lift to respond to the guidance document that we've been receiving. And when we first heard the timeline and the very short turnaround, knowing the work that you all have been doing to prepare to get here, but then also the fact that it's a very short turnaround for a complex document and what has to be turned around. So I just really commend all those that are late nights and lots of hours putting it into a document that, truthfully, at the end of the day, we won't know until the beginning of August as to whether we have the authority to open. So it's a lot of work with our fingers crossed. Thank you to all those who are stepping up. I also understand that that document will be housed on the district's website for all who want to see as of early August. And this was in listening to the Regents meeting and their discussion about this guidance document, and that this will be a public document. Knowing that, I guess I was wondering if there would be an interest or a desire from the board to hold a special meeting to right before it gets submitted or right after it's submitted in early August, sort of to do an overview and a presentation of what Saugerties document looks like, because it is a very complex and a very large. It has 4 different areas or 6 areas of focus, and all areas had a lot of requirements. And so it's a very complex document. So I don't know if we'd be interested in having a special meeting just to review it publicly, so that if anybody really wants to know what is Saugerties planning to do, we would have that available and it would be recorded and people could see it. So it was just a thought as we were looking at this. And again, thank you to the district and everybody who's working on this, and we'll see what happens. Fingers crossed.
Oh, Krista, to respond to you, I looked at the calendar. Our August board meeting's on August 11th, which is the Tuesday right after we should hear from the governor about what's going to happen. So we might combine that to get what you want and to get the public informed. So that might be very well the lion's share of what that meeting looks like. Since we have 2 meetings in August, we could devote most of that to helping parents guide them through what that's going to look like.
Just to follow up, Bob, then we'd want to probably publicize it as such and put out some huge press releases about it's not just a board meeting, it's we're going over the plan. Because right now, yeah, people don't know. Yeah.
Any other board members? Mr. Van Schack.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody in the administration and everybody in the school district for what they did for the seniors this year for the 2020 graduation. When you got lemons, you do make the lemonade, and you guys did a great job. I mean, I don't know, they might want you to top that next year, so look out. But it was a great. I mean, I couldn't be at the graduation itself, but I parked alongside the road and watched the parade, and I think seeing the look on the kids' faces and stuff like that, seeing something that was traumatic and terrible turned into something that was something they'll remember probably for the rest of their life.
Ms. Gage?
Sure, I'd like to tag on to Paul. Kudos to everybody that made that graduation so special for all the students. It was a tough year. I know a lot of parents were concerned. The biggest thing that I saw standing up there with Jim for most of the ceremony was every parent had a front row seat to their kid walking across the stage. And, the smiles on their faces were amazing. It was so fun to watch them. And it just was a great time. And I know a lot of parents were concerned, but the chatter I heard after about what a great celebration it was, and then the parade through the village. I jumped in my car and went into town and stood by Cahill, and boy, those kids were just beaming going through town. So just once again, kudos to everybody. I know it was difficult. I know it came with a lot of strife from many parents and even some students, but I thought it was a great celebration for all the students.
Yeah, I would agree with that also. We actually had a quick discussion earlier about that I think it actually far exceeded everybody's expectations. And the fact that these kids had, this almost like their own individual graduation kind of with their schoolmates, which was pretty awesome. And kudos to everybody that put in a lot of time and effort for that. And then second off, thank you guys for me being on the board. I'm excited about being here. I'm looking forward to learning from a lot of knowledgeable people here. I think this is going to be a great endeavor, and I'm looking forward to continuing to make this district better as a board and continuing to help these students and teachers promote learning throughout the district as well.
Ms. Moody?
Yes. I just wanted to say thank you to my fellow board members in the community for your trust, your confidence, and support. This is my 6th year on the board, and it'll be my 6th term as vice president. I've learned a lot. If any of you need anything, some of you come to me in the past, some of you I've come to you. Obviously, if I can help you, please let me. That's what I'm here for. I also wanted to just say two other things. To piggyback on graduation, it was fun. It was fun. And not to sound selfish, but, we've attended, I think I've attended every graduation since I've been on the board. And usually you just sit there, you clap and you watch, or you watch the beach balls going back and forth. And that was the entertainment. This was so much more spectacular. I think the involvement with the families really was key. And I think everybody that was involved in this, hats off. As it has been said, all the expectations were, exceeded. Lastly, it is hot, and I hate to say Florida weather, but it does feel like it rains every day for a little bit. And then I know everybody's nervous with, there's like, an uptick now. People are talking about a second wave. Please check on your neighbors, especially your older neighbors. Make sure they're okay, make sure they have what they need. Even if it's just bringing in their garbage cans, that would be greatly appreciated and the neighborly thing to do. Again, thank you.
Anyone else? Once, twice? Okay, I'll move into board president's remarks.
Katie got him.
Katie is late entry. Go ahead.
I'm waving my hand there. A couple of things. One, welcome, Tim. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that's just sort of flying by you. I encourage you to learn how to use the Google Suite that you have access to if you don't already know it. Just thank you for committing, right? 3 years of these meetings. And so we have a lot of fun, and it's good, important work. I do want to comment about the public comment period and about sort of access in general. So I know that there was somebody who wanted to join and actually make a public comment, and there's no direction on the website. There's no direction when you get to the YouTube channel about how to do that. So I can open it. I actually have it open right now, which is a little disconcerting to watch myself with this weird sort of several minute delay. But there's no direction to the public on how they can comment. So I'm wondering if we can just sort of fix that. Also, when I open it on Firefox, it opens, but when I open it on Google Chrome, it says video is not available. You need to get permission or get acceptance. So again, we don't need to get into those weeds, but I just want to, I applaud us for trying to make this accessible, because I know this is hard and challenging, but I think that we're not, there's some glitches that we need to address. So then related to the graduation, I have to say, being up there sort of helping the graduates stay on their little X's so they wouldn't get too close to one another. It was an incredibly intimate experience. And it was so great to see the families. I think that was the best part, was to watch the families in the cars as their graduates got out and walked. And for me, it was a real eye-opener to actually the level of diversity we have in this district. I think that we tend to think, and certainly the word on the street is that it's not a very diverse district. And there was a lot of diversity in that class. And in the families, there were mixed races, tons of different ages. There were clear sort of economic differences amongst all the families. And so related to that, I would hope that, and I know the person who wanted to speak tonight or offer a public comment is emailing us a proposed resolution for the board to adopt sort of an explicit anti-racist and equity stance as a board. And so I will forward that to folks, but I really want to honor the diversity that we have in this district. And I know Kingston has recently adopted an anti-racist resolution. And some people might say, oh, well, that makes sense in Kingston because there's more diversity there. I would say it actually is more important for us as a less diverse district to do so. Yeah, I'm just excited about the year up ahead. And I want to applaud, I mean, I've been part of the reorg or the re-entry meetings, some of those task force and working on the attendance policy. And everybody is working so hard. And I am just, I'm very grateful for that. And I really feel honored to be part of this group and doing the important work we have ahead of us.
Hey, Bob, I just want to add on to what Katie was saying. I just went out to Firefox on my other computer, and it says that it's unavailable, video is restricted, but if you go into Internet Explorer, you can get into it. I haven't tried Chrome because I haven't got my third station running yet, so.
Yeah, and so I got on Firefox, so there's something going on somewhere.
Yeah, so it does work on Internet Explorer, but it doesn't work on Firefox.
Yeah, I also, before the meeting started, talked to Dan about it. I wanted the notification of the board meeting on the website to include click here for the agenda. It didn't have it this time. So my concern is if the public can't open up the agenda to look at it, they're not going to know what to question or give input on. So I think we have to do a couple of things. We have to make directions to the video a little more easier. You know, if a person's thinking about the board meeting, like I got an email yesterday, I'd like them to click on the website and see how to get access, even though the link might not be up, but you know, something like stay tuned, the link will be posted at such and such a time. And also to open up the agenda immediately in the backup materials like we used to have. So sometimes we get overwhelmed by technology. So I think we have to regroup and make sure that we're reaching the public.
Yeah, as an outsider kind of coming into it, it was definitely difficult to kind of navigate into to kind of get access to all that stuff. I have a new guy question, I guess. Is there a reason why we use the YouTube and not like Zoom or something along those lines?
Great question.
Zoom was hacked. I presume it's hackable.
Okay, I'm just wondering because maybe that may make it a little more accessible for the public to kind of.
Zoom's gotten a lot better, and it's very hard to hack into it now.
Is it?
Yeah, and you can really set it up in such a way so that makes it harder to hack into it.
All right, any other board members? None to be heard. We'll move into the board president's remarks. Well, thank you to the board for electing me. I think it's very humbling. You know, it's I don't take the responsibility lightly. I appreciate the support of being nominated and being elected. So again, thank you. Welcome to Mr. Wells. I would like to set a goal for the August meeting to see if we could get out of this computer lab and move back into the library for a couple of reasons. One, I think there's enough room to socially distance the board members and to see them. I have board members in front of me on a screen. I don't have a rear view mirror, but I have board members behind me that I can't see. I think there's enough room, if you look at our board public attendance, to create some social distance. I know in my church, they were able to do some social distance stuff to get the public input in. And you know, to increase the chance of hearing from the public. I think we can take these computers here and the cameras and the technology and move that into the library fairly easily. At least I hope we can. And I think that would also bring back a sense of normalcy. Even if the public is going to be on a Zoom meeting, if they see the configuration of the traditional board meetings, that's one step closer to bringing people back in. So I would like to see that happen. As far as the document, the guidance document regarding the opening of schools, it is very comprehensive, but at the same time, it's also extremely vague. You know, you look at things that we were talking the other day after the audit meeting, some things don't make sense in a way. If you bring kids in every other week, you've already exposed everybody to the virus that you're trying to prevent. So how does that make sense? There's nothing to say that you can't bring everybody back in at once, and you know, socially distance when not appropriate, when you can't have masks and so forth. But there's a lot of things to be worked out. That could all be turned upside down when we hear from the governor during the first week of August. So there's a lot of unknowns. So my heart goes out to the administrative staff trying to plan for this. It's like trying to cook a meal without a recipe and without ingredients in some ways. It's an impossible task. but I think that we will get through it. The thing that I took away from graduation, not only the diversity, I'll agree, Dr. Haas, but the tremendous support from different walks. We had the American Legion there again. We had the police department. We had fire departments for the parade. The guy that works for the town, Mr. Hartram, who also runs a fireworks business, donated fireworks at Cantine Field to go off. There was a tremendous amount of support from throughout the community, and it shows you that the community really cares about our kids. To me, I've always said that our kids are the greatest natural resource we have in the community, and we need to do everything to support them. My concerns with the virtual learning is that it hasn't been the panacea that it's thought to be. We're missing input for kids, the ability to socialize, things like if a student has a problem to be able to talk to someone in school about a social worker or a teacher. So I would like to see, and I've had discussions with our superintendent about doing everything we can move to have a normal opening of school if that's possible. There's a lot of hurdles to jump, I understand that, but I think if we set that goal, the closer we come to it, the better things are. I also think the community needs a sense of normalcy from us. We've been doing Herculean efforts in supplying food to everybody in the community. We've been reaching out, as I pulled in tonight, there was a woman outside handing out yearbooks to kids as you drove up. It would be great to have those things occur in the school as a home base and as a community center. So we have a lot to get through. Dr. Haas also mentioned the issue of anti-racism and so forth and diversity, and we have a lot of work to do with that. So I look forward to the coming year. I expect great things, not only from the board. I've already seen great things come from the community, and I know our administration is capable. And with the teaching staff we have, I think it will be a very positive, proactive year. So thank you. I'll move to item I, education and curriculum. We need a resolution to adopt the CSD technology plan. Was that a hand going up, Ms. Barringer?
Question.
I can move it, but I also have a question.
Okay, can you, would the question be appropriate after we move it and then go into discussion? Okay, so you're going to move it. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Mooney. Discussion.
I just, I had a question only in that, was there a reason why the plan doesn't reflect any of the remote or distance learning activity that we've really just experienced? There's a lot of broad goal statements, but I didn't see anything really in the plan that talked about the incorporation of remote learning, distance learning, things going on that are happening right now and that are going to go on into the new year. So I was just wondering why that was not a part of the plan.
That's a very good question, Krista. And I don't really have a good answer for you. I think because we're thinking COVID's going to end and this is a 2-year plan, we didn't add it. We added it to our professional development plan, which is going to probably be next month for you to approve, but we didn't add it to this, and maybe I should relook at that. So if you don't want to approve it tonight, so I can add something, I will.
Can we just, if we approve it tonight, we can always amend it, correct, to add to it?
I don't know.
If we approve it, then it gets submitted to the state as approved.
I think the things that we did in that plan is we said we did like we did specific to virtual learning, but we did like one of the goals is 1-to-1 laptops, and that would incorporate distance learning, which is really what's needed to make this happen.
Well, I guess what I was looking for in terms of the educational goal setting and would be things such as that you do have the wordage for a learner and for a creative designer. And so you had wordage there. But what I did not see is actual goal setting of and students will be able to do X or teach a certain percentage of classes will be presented virtually or anything that had to do, and that when it was being presented virtually, we would expect a certain amount of achievement in their educational standards through virtual learning or distance learning, or because I think, and it goes back to, I think, what Bob was saying in terms of what are our students getting when we have them learning virtually? What are they possibly missing? So if we're seeing this as the future, and that this blended learning is something that we're going to be seeing long into the future, why aren't we putting that into our plan to establish what our goals are while that's occurring?
That's good. That's a good thought.
I agree.
Very good.
Plan due to the state.
We don't need to do one to the state this year. It'll be next year. So this is a district plan.
I defer to the superintendent really on the question as to whether this should be tabled and additional work. I don't know that this is going to change how we are functioning going into the new year. I don't think it's going to change our operations, but if we could take additional time to make sure that we're putting together a plan that really emphasizes what we're seeing into the future, is that something we could work on going into the future? Do we have to have a plan now?
The other thing, Krista, is we did this before COVID. So we just tweaked it a bit. So we don't have, like, we still don't have, you know, the percentage of the goal of what percentage of students will retain, because the last quarter, the grades didn't count. But now in the new year, they will. And we have to really be diligent with that, teachers, students, and administration. But we don't have that yet. We're still in the planning stages.
Right. But with due respect, I mean, all our students had a rating system. So there was, even though they didn't count, there was a rating of 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we had a benchmark for how well did they retain the material? How well did they participate? How well did they move forward? So we do have something to at least start the dialogue on. And how do we move this forward? So how do we put that into the goals?
That's fine. No problem.
Plus, I mean, you've already rolled out a remote learning plan. The best part of that is now you've got some practice under your belt, and you can come up with something and implement this technology plan to incorporate another way of remote learning, or hybrid ways of remote learning, so that they exist. Because the reality is everybody wants things to go back to normal, but I don't think they're going to do it anytime soon. So ignoring the fact and just hoping that you can roll the dice and have things, go back the way they were, really wouldn't be prudent it wouldn't be good to pass a technology plan that didn't have some kind of remote learning in it at this point.
So, Ms.
I would be happy to have the technology committee get together via Zoom or Meet, and we will open that and look at that. So, Kirk?
I'm fine with that. I think it should be, there's the technology plan, which is a K-12. My concern is, I don't want to attach numbers that may not be valid data.
Yeah.
I don't want to assess a success or failure on how we thought March and April may have gone based on us rolling this out. So I think, we can put goals within the plan, but there's things that determine how much a variety of hybrid, how much distance learning, how much remote learning. And if it's part of the plan, does it then have to become part of our budget, our process, and our expectations?
Well, I mean, it's like anything else, right? You're going to be talking about collective bargaining coming up. And I can't imagine that going forward in the future, anybody's gonna have any collective bargaining going on without some kind of pandemic clauses in there. So it doesn't mean it's gonna happen, but you should plan for it. So, I mean, the fact that you're gonna put information in a technology plan when literally half of March, April, May, and June were all done through technology in this past school year is unprecedented, should be included going forward in the future.
So, Krista, would you be happy if I hypothetically made a motion to table this until the next meeting? So then I'll unhypothetically make that motion to table it and make a motion to table.
Yes.
And it would be a second.
Yes, I would second. Yes.
Okay, good.
I would too.
I'll heard it.
All right, so the motion is tabled. Item J, personnel, I'll entertain a motion to approve item J1 through J4 in its entirety.
We need to vote on the motion.
No, once it's tabled, it's tabled. Moved by Mrs. Gaines, is there a second?
Yeah, second.
Second by Mr. Van Schack, any discussion?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I know I mentioned this briefly before, but we're approving coaches as part of the resolution that's on the table right now. And if some kind of remote learning or distance learning happens and these coaches don't take place, do we have a backup plan for, I don't want to approve all these positions and then if they don't run, we're going to have to fund them all.
We'd have to go back to the bargaining table like we did with the spring coaches.
So is it better to wait on that just because then we can say they were never approved, or is it better to just push forward and deal with the consequences?
When's the next meeting? When do practices start? August 15th?
Yeah, our next meeting is August 11th.
Let's wait.
So I will withdraw the motion to approve items J1 through J4, and I'll entertain a motion to entertain J1 and J2.
Is there point of parliamentary procedure? Not only are we approving coaching positions, but we're also looking at CSE recommendation for summer in this as well. So if you look at 3F.
So when, before we have this, if we take my motion, get a second, we can get into voting on 1 and 2, and then we'll make a separate motion for item 3 appointments, and then we can tease that out. We can take the coach's piece out if that's agreeable to everybody, and then put those necessary positions in there.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion on J1 and 2? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for item 3 appointments.
I'll motion pending discussion.
Oh, of course. So Ms. Barringer's made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Ms. Maskell. Okay, now for discussion. So my guess is for discussion, you would be happy, Ms. Maskell, with taking out the coaching positions right now, postponing those appointments till at least the August 11th meeting when we have more guidance on what school's going to look like. How do you feel about item E with the student advisors? Would you lump that in there also?
Sure. I mean, I'm deferring to the, I'm asking if, would it be easier to push them through and fight it after, or is it easier to just wait? That's my thing. I'm not saying don't put them on. I'm just questioning the process at this point and saying, are we making our lives more difficult by passing this now? Or or not. If you know, if it's on the agenda and administration feels like it should go through now, then push it through. But, you know, if it'll make it easier in the long run to deal with bargaining units and paying a lot of money out, you know, I don't want to pay money to a coach when when a sport isn't going to run, when if we don't go back remotely, and what are we, if we even have to talk layoffs, like that doesn't make sense to me.
Ms. Barringer, you had your hand up?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. I know I asked this question regarding our spring sports which weren't able to run, and I don't know that I ever got an answer in terms of, did we end up paying coaches for spring programming or our extracurricular activities that ended up not occurring? So because as it states in our resolution, we're doing it as stated per contract. So because we approved it, did they get paid because we did it as per the contracts?
The spring sports got paid half because the seasons had started. They did not get paid the second half. Dan can correct me if I'm wrong. I think the extracurricular, most of those had completed most of what their jobs were for the year, so they were paid in full. Is that right, Dan?
So how we move, what is the plan about all those that we are looking to do in the new year, not knowing if it's going to operate or not? What happens?
We would do the same thing. It would be based on the percentage of how many of their tasks were completed.
So do you feel confident of passing the sports right now, Mr. Reinhardt? Because if you
I have no problem tabling it, and I can meet with the bargaining unit and explain what our expectations are ahead of time, so that we're not having these conversations in October if something happens when we're not back.
That's good again.
I have no problem with that.
Okay.
So my suggestion would be to modify the item number 3 to just include item F, G, H, I, and J.
Can I ask a quick question on that, on your modification? I thought we had already approved summer school principals. So I'm wondering why we're redoing a resolution for summer school activity, as well as, I'm confused. Did summer school happen in person this year? Because I thought we were remote and.
It's virtual.
Virtual.
So your question, Krista, was did we already approve summer school principals, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we did. I think there was discussion about it, but I don't know if we formally approved them.
We approved teachers, not the principals.
Did you hear that, Krista?
Okay.
And as I said before, to change item 3 to just approve item F, G, H, I, and J.
Should we include A as well?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Item A, take out B, coaching recommendations, take out C, take out E, and then go with F, G, H, I, and J.
Can we make a motion to just take out a certain number of?
Sure. I
Thank
make
you.
a motion to amend the agenda. I wish to remove items from appointments, number 3, items B, C, D, and E. And have it instead be appointments 3A, F through I.
I have a J there too.
Oh, and J, I'm sorry. So we need to approve the amendment.
Okay, we need a second to your motion.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Van Schack. Any discussion on amending the agenda? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And now for a vote on item 3 as amended.
So
I'll call for a motion. So move, Mr. Van Schack. Is there a second? Second, Mr. Gage. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Sorry, who seconded?
Ms. Gage. And now for a motion on item 4, appointment for tenure. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Gage, second by Mr. Mooney. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 And congratulations to Kelsey Shanley for receiving tenure as a speech and language teacher. Item K, resignations. I'll entertain a motion for item K 1, 2, and 3 in its entirety.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mooney. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wells. Any discussion?
I just have a comment. I just want to thank Mrs. Gardner. I think she's doing a phenomenal job.
Okay, any other discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item L, business office recommendations. I will entertain a motion for item L 1, 2, and 3 in its entirety. And as well as item 4, transportation contracts and student lunch prices, item 5, which the transportation contracts for a late edition.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mooney. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Ms. Mescal. Discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Item M, board action discussion items. Item 1, CSE and 504 recommendations. I'll entertain a motion. Moved by Mrs. Gage. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Ms. Mescal. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Item 2, school physicians agreement. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion.
Who was that?
Me, Bob.
Okay, Ms. Mescal, is there a second?
So move.
Second by Mr. Van Scheck. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say
Aye.
Aye.
aye. Item 3, the ASPA memorandum of agreement for summer hours. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mooney. Is there a second?
Second.
A second.
Second by Mrs. Gage. Third by Ms. Mescal. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 And I will entertain a motion for item 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
So move.
Moved by Mr. Van Scheck. Is there a second? Ms. Mescal, any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And committee reports and other matters. Audit committee, Ms. Mescal and or Ms. Sinamore.
Go ahead, Jane. You can take it.
I brought my cheat sheet. Let me see, we reviewed the draft corrective action plans for the internal audit procurement for 2018 and also the assessment that was done earlier this year. We'll be forwarding that to the board for their approval at the August meeting. We discussed a few things that came up in the initial stages of our external audit, including the requirement for only one purchasing agent at a time. And then we discussed GASB statement number 84. And we also reviewed a report on our reserves and a plan for that going forward. And then we set up 2 more committee meeting dates, August 24th and September 28th. We also discussed the request for proposal for external audit services for the upcoming year.
And we discussed at the audit committee meeting yesterday about soliciting board input for the reserve. So I sent that email out to the board members today. If you had a chance to read it, and we'll probably have a question and answer session with Jane at one of our August meetings regarding that. So
Jane's working on coming up with a spreadsheet for
Where are you going?
RFPs. She's gonna come up with like a schedule so that we have a staggering schedule, so we're not constantly going out for RFPs for businesses, and we can just do like some every couple of years or whatever. And I think that that's going to really help too.
The other thing, the governor announced June 30th would be a look back, and so far there's been no mention of a look back, but we're not sure about other funds being approved like transportation aid and so forth. So we also talked about the possibility of an emergency meeting if there is a significant funding cut from the governor, so that we can account for that. So we could look at what's the best way to ensure student programming. Anything else, Ms. Pascal?
No, I think that was it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Mooney, facilities?
Sure. So we met, and the Riccardi roof was to start last week. I believe it did. They're looking at doing 35 square shingle a day because they have to sister some of the joists. So some of the load rating on the roof isn't up to what it should be according to the state. So every third beam, they have to kind of laminate with another beam. So as they take a portion off, they're replacing them and then moving on to the next one. As far as Riccardi goes, we were also looking at the cafeteria doors. And my understanding was that Jim and Garrett, if you guys want to jump in, if I'm wrong on this, please correct me. There was a question as far as the recess with the doors, as far as the clearance goes for the cafeteria tables to be brought out. So I think that's on hold for a minute until that's worked out, or no? That was my understanding in the meeting, correct?
So this is Garrett. I'll be glad to respond to that. Jim was away on vacation last week, so when we met, he wasn't able to answer that question. He's back today. He's not on the call anymore. He will be looking at that. I think there's a way that he can adjust the doors so that they'll be able to work for the tables to get them to clear. So that'll just be a design consideration once we're into design.
Okay, great, thank you. And then just everybody, BBL and Tetra Tech and the district, everybody is working very well together cohesively. Right now, the energy performance contract is ongoing with Honeywell. And one of the things that we wanted to stress was that when it does come time to vote on the capital project, we're also going to have up for a vote public support for the energy performance contract. And we've already voted on it. So at this point, we just need the public behind us on this so we can gain an extra 10% in cost savings. So that's really, I'm going to be mentioning this 10% in aid that we will get as long as the voters approve it at every meeting from here on out, just so it's out there. It would just be foolish, not to approve it. It's their money, and it's less money they'd have to spend. So our next meeting, I think we're looking at August 5th. It's the first Wednesday. I'm not sure. I know there were some discussions where a meeting might had to have taken place prior to that, based on information we did not have at the meeting. So as of now, being that this follows the reorg meeting, anybody who wants on the committee, please let me know, or Bob know, or Ms. Francello know. And as of now, we're looking at the first Wednesday of each month.
August 5th.
August 5th.
Okay. Dr. Haas, I understand you had an exciting policy committee meeting prior to this one, and we're waiting with bated breath to hear what happened.
It is never boring. Yeah, we talked about the wellness policy. So we have to do a triennial assessment, which needed to be done this year. By the end of June, I guess Dee Molyneux and Sheila Melville did do that assessment and sent it to the state. Dan will be getting the policy committee that data so that we can sort of look at the policy and make sure that the policy is addressing any of the deficiencies. The two things that sort of stood out that we discussed was that there's not as much sort of documentation and effort around healthy nutrition for staff. And that there's really lack of consistency across schools, right? So some schools are doing this, some schools are doing that, some have gardens, some want gardens. We also discussed that the wellness policy really just addresses physical education and nutrition. And it does say, we know that mental health is important, but look at our safety policy or safety plan for that. And so we really discussed how, even if we are not getting into sort of some of the details that the safety plan may get into around mental health, that we really want our wellness policy to be a holistic policy that recognizes that physical health and mental health and how we think and feel is really related to what we do with our bodies. So I'm going to be drafting some language that we will bring to our next policy meeting to look at, to include that, at least to be able to reference the sort of general universal strategies and perspective that we have as a district around mental health and well-being. Then we also looked at the Parents' Bill of Rights, which is sort of short and sweet. I just sort of brought up the question because it says in there that parents will get access to any data that we report to the state. But there's a lot of other data that is collected through Naviance and other tools that may be approved because we're using them through BOCES. But I think the Bill of Rights needs to address how parents have access and what their rights are to any of that data. And so Dan is going to just sort of check on that and bring that to our next meeting. And then we've been working on the attendance policy. So we have a work group. We've had 3 meetings, one in May, one in June, and one in July. I'm just collecting the data on sort of who's attended that. Teachers, we've had 4 students early on, administrators, Board of Ed. But you can look in your email for I think the best way to do it is to, I'm not going to sort of broadcast something out on social media about getting parents and community engaged. But I am going to send everybody a sort of a link that I'm going to ask you to send to parents and community members you think might be useful at the attendance policy work group. I mean, we do have to have 2 public hearings, which we certainly will have, and we will advertise about that. But I encourage you to think about parents and family and community members who are not also employed by the district. So many of us are parents in this work group, but I think it's important that we have parents and family members who are not necessarily embedded in the district. So we have established, we met last Friday at 10. There will be a meeting this Friday and the 17th, the 24th, the 31st to sort of continue to craft the policy. And then we are having our next policy meeting will be August 4th. I'm hoping that we will have sort of a real solid draft to look at as a committee and maybe bring to the August 11th meeting. So we'll sort of see what that's like. But that is sort of where we are.
Thank you. Board Community Relations, School Climate Committee. Mr. Reinhardt, did you want to comment on the survey that was been